I'm curious to get more of a breakdown of that wide receiver position because, when it comes to draft day, it is a position that is much talked about. Mm-hmm. We see these guys out there on game day every Saturday. How that game translates to the NFL, at least for me personally, as a college football fan, I've always had a really hard time figuring out who's going to pop at the next level and who isn't. How do you kind of do that calculus from your side?
Yeah, and a lot of it is this is where tape, because receivers is some of these guys get 6 targets in a game, and if you only watch those 6 targets, you're missing out on 60 other plays where you can get something from these guys where they're just running a route but not getting the target, and you can see them working against press or working a route that they haven't gotten the ball on, but you can see them running that type of route of the route tree. So that's where, watching these guys really comes up. Also seeing their effort in blocking. And I know that sounds like I think I've won some people over on it on our show because they thought I was just like, oh, coaching, like, oh, you're just an old coach that talks about it. Matters. It really matters because if you want to be in 3 wide receivers and run the ball, those receivers have to block. Like if you're taking out tight ends and fullbacks, like that's what they have to do. It's just part of the position now. And so that's where some of the size stuff comes in and more of just toughness. And that's what's so funny is that I'll start with him is Chris Olave. Is he's not usually the guys I like. I love his route running. He is advanced as one of the most advanced route runners I've ever seen come out of the college level. And on top of that, he has speed, legit speed that he uses. It's not just a theory thing where it's like, whoa, you ran a 4.38. I thought you were going to be a 4.5 guy. It's actually he uses that speed to his advantage. I like his ball skills. My negatives with him is he is smaller as far as play strength. He's not a good blocker. He can get pushed around if more physical guys, but he can overcome it because he's so skilled. So that's why I'm okay with him as opposed to usual with the smaller guys or skinnier guys, I should say, because he's not small, he's 6 foot, but it's just skinny. He's just skinny. And that always matters with durability stuff. But then Drake London I went in, this is what I thought. I thought he was just going to be some big dude, almost like one of the Clemson guys that's come through the years, Mike Williams, the T. Higgins of the world. These just big, almost stiff, but just like snatch everything. And why I loved London so much was he was sinking on routes. You could see the athleticism, even if his long speed's not there, his 1 through 10 speed was actually pretty good. And also being able to actually run a full route tree, even if it's a true air raid offense that they ran. And oh my God, so many screens. I couldn't believe how many screens they're running. Oh my God.
You have Drake London and you're throwing him short balls all the time.
Over and over. And also the quarterback was late all the time. Yep. And that's where some of the separation arguments came from. Well, you can't separate. It's like, no, he separated. The quarterback was 3 seconds late. Mm-hmm. So he had to plant his foot and go up and get it. Against Oregon State, I watched him and he legitimately drew 5 penalties in that game or more. That's just off the top of my head. I can remember. So it's like, he's dominating. Like he is dominating as much as you can see a receiver dominate at the college level, and the versatility that he brings. He can work from the slot. He can block. Like they have him running like tight end blocking stuff. So it's like this guy, no matter what, I think it can just be useful. And if the upside, he still has upside though. He's super young. He's just finally becoming a full-time football player for the first time in his life. I just like the package of him: size, ball skills, route running. Just all the polish that he's already shown, and he's so young at such a young age. So that's why I really, really like him. There's a couple other guys, bigger guys that I always gravitate towards. I'm high on Justin Ross from Clemson. Sure. Really, and what's funny is I remember him as a freshman, but really my grade off of him, I have an early second grade on him, and medicals are going to be a train wreck for him. Yeah. But this past year I was watching him and I was like, this guy's a stud. It's just that the quarterback was hitting the stands on the throws. Mm-hmm. And so this poor guy's breaking guys off on routes and then seeing the ball go over his head. He looked like, like a pitcher that gives up a home run. And the ball, and they just look at the ball go over. That was Justin Ross running routes. But what I liked about him was that he would still compete as a blocker. He was still into the game, even though the targets weren't coming, the stats weren't coming. So that really I was like, okay, you get it. You want to compete, and receivers can come and go with their competition levels. So those are always positives that you want to see. Then you want me to just talk about the rest of the first round guys I have?
Yeah, go for it.
So
what do you got?
My number 3 is Jameson Wiliams. And I think everybody's watched college football or now knows about the draft, knows what his game is: speed. But what I liked about him is he was more of a real receiver than I thought he would be. He actually knows how to run routes and actually knows how to tempo his stuff. Bit of a body catcher, which I didn't like, but I still like him as like he's useful. Like no matter which team he goes to, you always have a use for speed. Mm-hmm. And then next, I really like Johan Dotson from Penn State. I know that I'm preaching to the choir probably here, but I think he's just a ball player. Like I think he played with bad quarterback play or iffy quarterback play, and I think he's just a hell of a football player. Plays big. I compared him to Tyler Lockett. And then Treylon Burks from Arkansas, which is one of the weirdest studies I've ever had for the receiver position, just how they use him. I think he's a big boomer bust candidate, but if he gets to the right system that guides him along, I think he still has to learn how to play football. I don't think his understanding of the playbook's all the way there. That's why they motion him so many times. They have to tag him and tell him, hey, Treylon, move to the right, run this route. So I do think there's part of that. So his learning curve is going to be a little steeper, but if he hits, he'll hit pretty well because he's just has so many cool traits. And the last one's Garrett Wilson from Ohio State, which I have some concerns with his route running and how he plays against press. But when you just get the ball in his hands and it's just like, go do stuff because he's so dynamic. I compared him to Brandon Ayuk from who's with the 49ers now, where it's a little bit more boom busty, but it's like, just get the ball in his hands and let him go make plays.
Who is the highest star potential guy on your board? Either any position, any side of the ball, whatever. You mentioned Malik Willis has the highest star potential of any of the quarterbacks, but just in terms of like, look, you're in Vegas. If you're betting 10,000 of your own American dollars that this person will be a Pro Bowler, who is that person? Drake
London. Okay. I do. I think that if I'm not as concerned about his long speed. I know he hasn't run and he keeps putting off his pro day, but I'm not as concerned as other people are because he could just win. Like it's just a useful NFL player, NFL receiver. And I think that if he does take a next step, that it's like, oh, who's going to guard him? Like it's, I've seen now for 7 years, no one can guard Mike Evans unless you just double team on basically every play. I think he's not as big or as truly as explosive as Mike Evans is, but I think he's more skilled. So it's kind of like a fun match. I know I'm super high on him, and I feel like I go crazy. I go crazy on him, but then I just every time I rewatch him, I'm like, yeah, I double down on that. But I do think he has some of the most star potential, especially with this crop. And it's a good crop of receivers.